that was your friend.
All right, good evening. Welcome to Southbridge School Committee meeting, Committee of the Whole meeting. Purpose of this meeting tonight is to discuss the FY16 budget. It is 6:05 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and request a roll call, please.
Mrs. Conlon? Present. Mr. Abrahamson?
Present.
Mrs. Donovan?
Present.
Mrs. Quinney? Present. Mr. Olivo? Dr. Page?
Mr. Lebo has a work obligation, and Dr. Page may or may not join us.
Okay, and
He's
Mr.
traveling.
Baldwin.
I'm present.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I'd like to inform you that we'll be videotaping tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much. For the record, Mr. Bishop is videotaping.
Okay.
Thank you. So the purpose of, as I said, the meeting is to discuss the FY16 budget, so I will turn it over to Superintendent Stanton and we can.
Thank you. What I believe we're here to do tonight is to discuss the gap between what we had proposed as the level service budget and the final town numbers. So in my memo to you dated June 8th, 2016 proposed budget cuts, there's a discussion of the gap that we have currently. There's also a discussion on page 2 of the cuts to meet that. My goal has been, as I've stated, to have cuts that are least impactful to instruction in classrooms, and also to programming for students, specific to students. Also, to avoid the massive pink slip scare tactic. I will not do that. But it doesn't mean that there won't be some positions that are eliminated that will result in pink slips. So if you look at the 2016 budget, the cuts, what we are looking at and recommending to the school committee as changes to our final budget, we are eliminating the director of operations, we are eliminating the supervisor of instruction, we are eliminating the operations assistant. Actually not eliminating, let me rephrase, we are restructuring central office so that that position will become assistant to the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. We are eliminating an accounting clerk. We are eliminating the EA at the school store. We are eliminating the academic dean, and that has contractual implications. That position needs to be put back in as a teacher at the Southbridge Middle High School. We are combining a classroom at the pre-K level. Our enrollment is not full. That allows us to place that position at the K level, which is a retirement. We would be eliminating the shared elementary pre-K music teacher. We would be eliminating the health teacher after discussion with the scheduling committee. The full-time PE teacher is not needed. We will be eliminating the math EA tutor position at the high school, the EA music position at the Southbridge Middle High School, and the funding for field trips with the belief that the PTAs may be able to fundraise for that line item. So those would be the recommendations to the proposed level service budget to meet the funding gap.
Just want to, for clarification, there was an understanding coming out of EHS that the gap was about $360,000. And just for the public's benefit to understand why that gap is actually wider.
Sure. One of the items as part of the budget process the town has placed onto the school department is unemployment. So unemployment expenses will carry over to the school department. That raises, we're estimating $200,000. It's been much higher. It's currently trending lower. It's our hope that we could be below that number, but when I'm forecasting, I don't go on hopes, I go on expectations. As the superintendent indicated, there may be the need for things like pink slips, which would move our number up based on this budget. So in order to be realistic, I felt that $200,000 was an appropriate number. The town has, you'll notice that that gap is about $100,000 wider, not $200,000 wider. That additional 100,000 is presumably solar credits. The town has indicated that at some point there will be solar panels placed on some of our buildings that will result in solar credits. They have told us that will be in the neighborhood of $99,000. Those solar panels don't exist. I don't know where those numbers came from. I'm relying on their assurances that we will receive $99,000 in solar credits. So that makes the gap about $101,000 wider. There was an increase. Our original number was the $360,000 gap. It's a little narrower based on the $30-some thousand that the town gave us in addition. So the original estimate, you will see in your memos, there is a discussion of the exact gap, which is now more like, what is the number? 424,000.
For the record, I would like to say the unemployment costs were about $300,000 last year. This year, our projected unemployment costs are about $153,000, which is why the $200,000, given the fact that we may be looking at layoffs due to the budget, we feel is an appropriate estimate. I think that it's also worth noting that the Chapter 70 support rose 2.17%. The town has elected to retain over $300,000 of Chapter 70 increase and decrease their share of school funding by approximately $204,000. So again, we're in a position where Chapter 70 funds have increased and the town contributory share is decreasing. And that has historically been, I think, part of the problem in managing level 4 status and trying to put and build programs that when the state increases, the town correspondingly decreases.
Are there any questions from the committee on this? Or any other? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I wanted to just get some clarification on page 2 of the memo, either to the superintendent or to the finance director, relative to the 2016 cuts to meet the town budget. My first question was relative to the West Street School and Charlton Street School academic dean. You said that that person will be moved to, and I believe right now that person currently services both schools.
Correct.
So right now, that person will now move to the middle high school as a teacher. That $58,000 that's listed here, is that current salary, or is it, do we know what the salary will be? So is there a net, or is, I guess where does the 58
That is the
come
cost
from?
of a teacher that would be bumped because that person has effectively what's called bumping rights. So that person has a different salary, but when they move down there, there's going to be one extra teacher. That, the lowest teacher based on bumping rights for RIFs, layoffs, things like that, that lowest person is at about $58,000.
So the person
So that's the
getting
savings.
bumped is
Yes,
currently
per-
receiving that salary?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The second question that I had, you said it quick, Superintendent Stanton, and I just wanted to make sure I understood. You have Eastford Road School pre-K teacher, $38,000 absorbed. And then I thought you'd mentioned something about replacing a kindergarten teacher, because I know that's a concern for a lot of families. We have a teacher that's retiring this year. So are we eliminating a pre-K teacher so that we can have, so that we can replace this retired teacher? And so are we looking at 3 pre-K teachers now versus 4 under this scenario? And is that a problem?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
And to Ms. Quinney, she had asked for some supporting information, and I do have that. I don't know if you want that now, or...
I wanted to.
Actually, Jane, do you
Madam
want me to
Chair,
respond to that or not?
Go ahead.
to add to Mrs. Donovan regarding the pre-K teacher, have we, given our preschool classrooms are integrated preschool classrooms and therefore we get special ed students who are referred throughout the year, have we discussed how many students will be transitioning midway, partway, anytime during the year versus who's enrolled currently?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't think we can anticipate if you're talking about students that may come into the district, into the...
We absolutely will not anticipate students coming into the district, students that are in the district that are in an early intervention program that will then be referred. We should have all of those numbers. Do we know what those numbers look like currently?
No.
I just did, if you just give me a second, projections for the grant that we were working on today. Based on our current numbers, our program can hold 120 students, but right now we are at 100. So based on those 100, we have 42 right now on IEPs. So we're anticipating for next year, our projection is another 40 on IEPs. And that's broken down by age. Let's see, 3-year-olds, 16 on IEPs. 4-year-olds, 21 on IEPs. 5-year-olds, that'll be in preschool next year, 3 on IEPs. And those are ages by October 31st, so if you're wondering, because the cutoff date is August 31st.
So those are by October 31st.
Yes.
And we can still have multiple students who are on EI plans being referred at any month during the year, and multiple students at that.
Well, that'll leave 15 spaces open. I anticipated 15 spaces for, so it could be higher than that, but that's what I've projected.
So 82 out of 120, is that what you're saying? Students will be on IEPs and our integrated class?
It'll be 40 out of 100.
So we're gonna go down.
We're at 42 right now out of 100,
So
out of 97.
So are you
I'm sorry.
anticipating adding 15 more to that number throughout the year?
I'm sorry, I'm anticipating 50 total. 50 total. So 50, we'll be at 50%. 50%.
So an additional 10 students
Yes.
coming in on IEPs throughout the year, correct? That aren't currently in the program, as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, now's the time to do it. The next question that I had was relative to the elementary music teacher. Did you say pre-K to that as well? I know we have multiple music teachers now that I think do the math
Correct,
in
so
my
we have
head.
we have a music teacher that's shared at pre-K, at K and elementary school, and that would be a position eliminated.
Yes.
That elementary music teacher currently covers for preschool prep.
Yes.
So what will happen with that prep period?
So that may be something that we have to go back to Principal Scripsack and discuss. That we may be looking at a .5 position as opposed to the full-time.
And then my final question was relative to the middle high school music EA. We currently have one of those? I wasn't aware of that position. What would that person do?
The middle school, high school scheduling, I think was problematic, and class sizes were very large in the music classes. So the decision was made in order to support the learning environment, to support the safety of students in both the chorus and music, to have an EA support those classes. And that would be something that we would hope to address in scheduling so that the courses were more equitably scheduled and not so large.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Mrs. Quinn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, on the summary report, the 8/15, 9/06, 38, is that the current, based off the current budget number that the town has given us, or was that the first budget number?
On the right-hand side, the 2016 budget,
Yep,
all adds up to that 25,550, which is, you'll see $24,000, $24,623.30 under the town's budget. So it gives us a hair of wiggle room.
some of the, like, as Mrs. Donovan had said, I was not aware of this music EA position, and what tier was that person determined to be on? Because it doesn't seem the music EA fit any one of the tiers that we had set up in the job description.
Correct.
So that was a new position that was created and not voted on by the school committee.
Which is why it is being eliminated at this point.
All right.
Prior decision.
Okay, this middle high school phys ed teacher and social studies teacher, I do remember voting to approve a .5. That is 2 full-time positions. How did that happen?
I can't answer that, it was prior to my superintendency.
And then I have questions regarding Director of Operations and Student Affairs, Operations Assistant, and I guess all these central office positions. You said that that was a restructure. Didn't we vote to not have a restructure?
My assumption is that the decision to not restructure was for the full use of central office positions to support the changes at the Southbridge Middle High School. I did not take that as a vote to reorganize how we conduct business at central office to meet the potential gap between the town budget and our level service needs.
I guess my question would be is, this was all part of the restructure package. It seems like we're picking and choosing what we're restructuring and not restructuring. And that to me is problematic, given it was presented as a whole restructure. We've restructured half of what was going to restructure in order to meet.
So if I
Budget
may,
cuts.
yep, when the restructuring plan was not approved, we went back to the board, back to the drawing board, to meet the town parameters. In trying to meet the town parameters, we looked at ways that central office could reorganize positions and redistribute workload, and came up with positions that we can eliminate, although it won't be optimal, as it wouldn't be optimal in any school either, but that we feel we can make do, I think, and meet the parameter.
Could I just, on that, I think it's very important because this administrative structure and everything is tossed around a lot. The total central administration is in this room tonight. So let's not, there are 2 there, and there are 2 there, and that's 4. It's not 30, it's not 90, or whatever the latest, thing is. There are 4. Thank you.
To that point, I was just going to say that I've heard repeatedly that the umpteen or countless jobs that have been added at central office over 2015, I see a district-wide ELA coordinator, which was approved by the school committee,
Correct.
and a curriculum/operations clerk. Those are the two positions, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 2 of the 10 positions that were added last year were in central office. One of which was approved by the school committee, and one was a position that had been not filled and then was filled.
Correct.
All right, so I just want to clarify that
Yes.
of the 10 unbudgeted positions, 2 of those were in central office and 8 were other places, in 2 other places.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Could I just, one more thing on that?
Oh.
When, at the budget, the reconstruction hearing, someone got up and said there were 30, I went on the DESD website and I counted all these people, and there's 30 positions. That was a former teacher of this district who said that. And what he didn't bother to look at was that several names covered several positions. And so he says, can't we get rid of some of these? Well, on there was Mary Scripps Act. Getting rid of the, early childhood pre-K coordinator and that, so, yeah, sure, we can do without that. Why don't we get rid of, also on there was Araceli Escueda, who, ELL, we've ignored them long enough, let's just ignore them some more. The social worker, school social worker, and homeless advocate. By the way, Mary doesn't have, she's not in central office, all right? And the
Or
homeless,
the PT.
that's,
Or the OT.
she's at the middle high school, so, we don't need that type of thing. I wish people had taken the time to actually analyze what people have said, because it simply is not true. Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
I just wanted to share, I believe there's a strong misinterpretation, as you're alluding to, about positions. And historically, it looks to me like Southbridge has budgeted many staff who may have some reporting to people in the central office, or may service multiple locations, or may have more flexible schedules in central office. To some degree, that's highly academic, whether you call them central office. So for example, school nurses are budgeted out of the central office, but they sit in schools every day, all day, servicing students. I don't think anyone would argue that we should throw out our nurses for the sake of meeting some sort of budget parameter. My goal this year is to make an effort to start budgeting people more where they're located, so that we do have a better understanding of person A works at the middle high school, therefore they're budgeted at the middle high school. But regardless of where they're budgeted from, they sit. I can pour over this list. We have sped team chairs to the tune of $250,000 who sit at schools, who do work servicing students at schools. We have BCBAs who sit at schools. We have occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech pathologists, adjustment counselors, PT assistants, ABA assistants, parent home liaisons, job coaches, life skills, social worker, psychologists, nurses. All of these people sit in schools or spend every bit of their working hours in schools. Regardless of where they're budgeted, they work for the schools. And I think that's really important to understand, and we would like to change that budgetarily, but for all intents and purposes, it is very academic. Very. Thank you.
Mrs. Quinn, did you have more?
I did. I wanted to know what the class size for the preschool would be
With the reduction?
with the reduction, yeah.
Well, we would have to cap it. So right now, we have the capacity to have 120 students, which is 15, and that's what the NAEYC accreditation allows. The student-teacher ratio,
Is 15 for
Yes.
Nyack?
yeah. So it's 1 per every 8 students. So that would allow actually 16 in each classroom. So we have 8 sessions at 15 each.
So
So
maybe
that's
going to 6?
120, and we would be going to 6, so that would bring us down to 15 times 6, so 30, 60, 90. So we just have to cap our preschool, which is a great fix for how we're going to solve the budget at Eastford Road, but with our increasing special education numbers, our goal, 2 months ago, we were talking about trying to manage the finances so we could have a full-day preschool program. So not only are we not gonna have preschool full day for our 4-year-olds, we are going to offer preschool to less students in a very needy population that we already don't service.
Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Scripps, how many students do you currently have enrolled for preschool starting in the fall that are not on IEPs?
I don't have that number. Our projection right now is 100, based on the, I wanna say it might be like 82 or 86.
So if you already have 80, are you guesstimating 86 not on IEPs? And then you're.
That includes both.
Oh, that includes both.
And we're,
So 36 students not on IEPs, approximate.
right now, 86, I believe, are enrolled, and we are anticipating 15 more IEPs. So we're anticipating about 100. So we'll have to cap at 90.
Well, I think the challenge then becomes, so you cap at 90 and then you have.
An over 50% ratio.
An over 50% ratio, and then you have kids moving in or homeless students or whatever, and then those kids are on IEPs and you have to accommodate them. So halfway through the year, you can't kick non-IEP kids out. I think that poses a big problem moving forward. And that's concerning to me, because if you get halfway through the year and for some reason, students that qualify for IEPs is higher than your estimate, you're gonna be over your cap, you're not gonna get NIAC certified, and you're gonna have to hire a teacher halfway through the year, and that's, split up classrooms halfway through the year is not a really good plan for kids that already are having difficulty with transition, and trying to get consistency in a routine in preschool is a big challenge. I also, you had said, Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Stanton, now we have the middle, high school, EA, that's a tutor?
Correct.
Can you explain that to me, because tutors were eliminated?
That's my understanding, so that's why the position will be eliminated.
So we, okay. There we go. So I had forwarded questions that I had regarding the budget. I don't know if other people want to ask questions now.
Those are responses to those questions.
Thank you.
Do you want to go over those questions?
Sure, so the first question that I had asked was, how many people are retiring? As Ms. Stanton said, we were gonna not fill retired positions and through attrition.
It's not that we are not going to not fill all retirements, but that we would look at retirements first, and perhaps involuntarily transfer staff to fill those positions. So in our proposal, that's the goal. So we would be filling most of the retirements at this point. One of the things that we can do as a budget is to understand resignations and retirements and budget salary accordingly. And there are times where we do see savings there.
If I can share very quickly, there is no Southbridge Community College. SCC SPED really should read CSS, Charles Street School. So the second position on the current retirements, I just didn't want. That's the only acronym I can think of, Southbridge Community College. So.
And I did not ask for such specificity, I just wanted to know.
Okay.
Teacher versus
Sure.
EA versus, so this is more detailed than I requested.
Those are all teachers.
I didn't want to know what positions are
Sorry.
to be able to. So you talked about rifts and bumping. So that leads to my next question, which was how many non-professional status teachers we currently have? So non-professional status teachers can be non-renewed, especially in their first year. So if that's the case, then why are we bumping or riffing people rather than non-renewing teachers?
Well, it depends on their licensure area. So you're not going to RIF a non-professional status teacher, more particular at the high school, middle school, for content.
I'm sorry. Of these, that's 15, 95 non-professional status teachers, only 3 are going to be non-renewed.
At this point, yes.
Is that typical? My understanding is it's about 20 on a regular year that end up non-renewed. So of our 95 non-professional status teachers, are all but 3 are performing job duties that exceeds our expectation or super proficient in a level 4 district that is struggling significantly. That number seems extraordinarily low. Extraordinarily low.
I think that one of the things you may not be aware of is that we have had resignations of non-professional status teachers throughout the year. And unfortunately, as they come late in the year, those are filled with long-term substitutes. So we will be hiring for positions. I don't believe that's a question that you asked. And so that number is most likely higher because we will be filling them through the normal hire process. So we've had resignations of non-professional status teachers.
This says we currently have 95. So I would assume people that have resigned throughout the year and counted in our 95. Is that not accurate?
I don't know. I was not here this morning to speak with Katie about how she created the number. So I don't know.
And I asked for positions or people that were on yearly positions that were year-to-year or at-will contracts, which I guess is attached. A list of positions which we already have that were eliminated, any that were created and weren't budgeted for, as well as a rationale, which we have on that sheet too. Current class sizes for individual classes, and so I didn't want to know like how many kids take Algebra 1, but how many kids are in each algebra class, because I've heard rumors of 4 and 8 kids in classes, and if we're looking at making cuts, how can we potentially absorb those kids into another class, or if it's special, could we use VHS to meet those needs, given we're paying for those slots? Could we eliminate those classes and put those as VHS for whatever, does VHS have that? And this was just my thinking, rather than,
So I do want to let you know that prior to making the recommendations, I did have conversations with the scheduling committee, some members of the scheduling committee at the high school, and these were some, the proposal is part of their recommendation, places, whereas the schedule is not finished yet, but it was the recommendation coming out of the scheduling committee, where particularly at the middle school, high school, positions could be eliminated without a detrimental effect to the overall program. With respect to the elementary, which I think you're looking at now, we aren't really able to do any eliminations at the grade level for classroom teachers because class size will be negatively impacted. And we're already right at the cusp of what I feel is effective instruction. I'd be careful in looking at the middle school, high school numbers. Some of these are classes that are AP coursework, so the numbers are low, and we do need to consider how we are going to address those. We have 4 and 5 students in some of our AP classes, and we want to have a high-quality, high-rigor program for students, but we may need to start looking at how we can partner, as you mentioned, through either VHS or with some online types of coursework, more like what they do out in the Berkshires, where they have students in very rural parts of the state, and they can use online and video conferencing. We may be looking down the road at something like that. I don't know if it's sustainable to have some of our classes with such low enrollment. And then the flip side is to use some grant partnerships with people like Mass Insight to actually increase the numbers of students who are enrolling in this coursework. So we're actually meeting tomorrow with Mass Insight to bring professional development to the staff, to the school, to increase the numbers of students that want to take and are able to take the AP coursework. So trying to do both. Look at, are there ways to offer it differently, but also increase the enrollment there, because it isn't that we don't want kids doing it, it's just, it's difficult.
and do we know, given the small class size, I haven't gotten that far, that you referred to in those classes, how many students are passing those AP exams? What's the passing
That's sort of
rate?
the next step of what we're going to do with Mass Insight, is to take a real hard look at how our students are performing, whether the courses are rigorous, where their skills may need improvement, and that's the whole work with Mass Insight, is to look at that whole entire program and really raise both the expectations of students in the program, but also raise the number of students who are participating. So that's really next year's work in that program.
So right now, based on numbers that you've received, I know that last year they cut a fourth grade teacher at West Street School, which then needed to be added halfway through the year. So I have concerns about, as you stated, that our numbers are already maxed right now. Projections moving forward, do we have kids choicing out? Do we know if that number's gone out and what grade levels that's affecting and how that would impact these numbers that we have before us today?
Sure. I haven't heard yet. One of the things I have heard is that some of our surrounding communities are accepting elementary school choice, younger and younger. They're doing that by offering some extracurricular activities, clubs at the elementary school. So one of the things that we did do in the contract is recognize that and put clubs down at the elementary school to sort of balance that. I have no numbers right now regarding school choice out of the elementary, but I have heard that it is being advertised, so to speak.
And you had said that the reason we added a music EA was because the numbers were,
I believe chorus in particular.
and is that because
And again,
students want
it's-
to take a course, or was it
Ms.
because?
Queen, honestly, it was prior to me, so I really don't have,
Middle school, very first page 1, the very top, you'll see this chorus. The fill number, if you look at the columns, it's a little confusing because this comes off
Is 30?
44. There are 44 students in chorus, it seems. Very top of middle school, there should be one that's middle school.
It says maximum is 100,
Maximum is 100.
and it has 44.
Current is 44, Bill is 44. How many students are currently in that class? That's what I believe to be the case.
Right.
I believe there were other,
So the maximum that could be in chorus is 100 students. Right now, there are 44 students in it, but the numbers, we needed an educational assistant because the numbers were too high.
so moving forward, we're eliminating the position and pushing back to the school and saying, you need to schedule the classes more appropriately and distribute students throughout the schedule so that we don't encounter class sizes that are that large.
I guess the max number and the full number seems like there could be 56 more kids in that class before it was completely full.
Space.
Right?
I don't want to do
It
that,
doesn't-
I would take that to
I would not want to
space.
be responsible for 100 students, middle school students in a classroom. If you go to the next page that's labeled page 3, you'll see middle school band. That currently has 65 students in it, page 3. I'm just trying to give you a cross-section of what I see. I'm not in the schools all day, every day, but I know that I was physically here when that decision was made to add it. I don't know exactly what went into that decision, but it was based on some large class sizes in band and chorus. So I'm just trying to give you some evidence for maybe why that was the case.
So
I don't know if
I guess the next question will be, who sets the maximum?
So that's the discussion with the scheduling committee, the building principal, and then our data manager.
Ms. Harvey?
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. While she has the floor. Through you, Madam Chair, to the superintendent, just for clarification. So what you're saying is, right now, we're not trying to increase class sizes.
Correct.
We're going to try to keep the numbers down
Correct.
as well, especially in kindergarten.
Correct.
With the retirement of the kindergarten teacher, we still want to keep class sizes down.
We're going to replace that retirement.
Perfect. As well as the other schools, once we know enrollment data.
Correct.
And another question regarding the elementary music. This year, it was made a full-time position to share with that middle school, high school. Last year, it was a .5 position. Just personally, I feel that the arts is important, especially at any level, for the students. So I would really be in favor of trying to find money to make that part a .5 position.
I agree.
I do have a question.
Can I just say something really quick? I understand that, and I agree with you. I still don't even have a sped teacher at Eastford Road.
So SPED would be a priority.
Correct. So I think to that point, one of the things that we're doing is once the decision is made that this budget is approved, then I think we go back and go once through again and start prioritizing, because a budget is a budget. There may be potential decreases in certain line items that occur, that allow us to, again, I think, pull from different line items to make a pot of money, if you will, so that we can have priorities met. The special education teacher at the Eastford Road School is priority one. And that has been longstanding, and we're well aware of that. Another priority for us is the team chair at the high school. We are falling back into some problematic issues around compliance, and that has us very concerned. The workload is overwhelming to the point where we have a special ed supervisor filling that role, which means that some of the things that we want to do at central office are not being done for special education in the whole district. So that is another priority for us as well.
Thank you, through manager, to Ms. Gripsack's point, in regards to special education and team chairs, I mean, we have to follow the law.
Correct.
I think the law is the top priority in
Yep.
keeping up with compliance. So definitely, that would be the top priority, but along with some other things that we have had established, I think are important as well. But the law, I think, is the top priority.
I want to point out that in order to meet compliance at the middle school, high school last year, we actually reallocated a special education student from Charlton Street School. So they are down to 4. And so when we look at service delivery, that's one thing, and compliance. But, you know, we would end up cutting a teacher someplace else, and that would probably end up having to be West Street School. So we're playing a dangerous game of kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul when it comes to special education. What we're doing is looking at students and where they're going from school to school. And, you know, we have not added any special education positions whatsoever, the numbers that we have.
And I was gonna say something very similar to that, so even though it looks like, you know, we're cutting a position here, we're cutting, these positions are needed and are required, and they have to come from somewhere. So even though we're eliminating positions, in addition to those being eliminated, we still have to take from other buildings and other places to fill the need of our students.
So to Ms. Gripsack's point, we had asked for additional positions. And those in several different levels. Minimally, the positions that are being discussed are what we're asking for. It was also a goal of the school committee to improve our ELL programming. None of those requests, which are minimal requests, are being filled with this. So I just want to make it clear that it isn't that we don't share the goal, but this is to meet the parameter. So we have no additions to special education, no additions to ELL. And that is very impactful when you talk about trying to improve the programming. This is no additions to social emotional learning, PBIS, interventions for students, no interventions when we have good numbers coming out of Eastford Road School regarding keeping children at grade level at a very young age so that we can start to see if we keep children at grade level at our youngest ages that they can continue to stay on grade level and therefore not need intervention. We don't have the interventionists at the youngest levels to keep kids at grade level and catch them up quickly. Those were all requests that we made that will not be funded.
But can I just add to that? But to get what we need, we have to pull from the existing staff. So even though I have 9 kindergarten teachers, I need 1 to be a special education teacher. I need 1 to be an ELL teacher. That brings me down to 7 kindergarten teachers. And then if there's a retirement and that doesn't get replaced, that brings me down to 6 kindergarten teachers.
Ms. Andrews?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just chime in here because sometimes things get lost. We are here at this point, and we would have been here anyway, when Councilor Vecchia said, we will not raise the levy. We are going to not raise what we could raise under 2.5. And Council Moriarty, Council Carrasco, Vandal, and Estrada all said yes. So they had a majority, and they stuck with that majority. And based on that, they gave us this very narrow amount that the schools could have. I think it's important to point out that everyone on the school committee at that point said, they don't have a clue what we need. So we put together a needs-based budget and said, this is where you want it, this is where you're giving us this, and this is where we need to be. We knew we wouldn't get that, we knew we wouldn't, but at least we had to point out, my God, look what you're giving us. And so basically, and then of course, they did the whole thing, and the schools were responsible for the ruts of the road and the buildings falling down, and the schools are responsible for everything, except for a mismanaged town council budget for ages. So we would be here anyway, based on that parameter, based on you have to, we can't say what we're going to get. The town council says what we're going to get, and it was set in stone when 5 people said, we're not giving you any more of this.
Just to follow, so pretty much as a committee, there's all these needs in the district. We're back where we were many years ago, where our hands are tied as a school committee. There's all these needs of the students in the community, and we still can't service those needs because our hands are tied by the decision of the town council.
Correct.
So, there we are.
I have a question, if I could, on the pre-K teacher. So that 38,000, is that our half of what would be, because some of those positions, we receive half out of the grant. So is that the 38,000 is the half of that position? The half would be responsible for?
Do you want me to talk about the grant?
Well, the grant is
It's
important, because I don't
percentage.
think people understand that our preschool is partially
Yes.
funded through a grant program
It's
and
percentage
partially
funded.
funded by the district.
That's correct.
So, I'm just curious about that, and also if you're eliminating, just say you're eliminating pre-K teacher position, then I would assume that the educational assistant attached to that pre-K teacher also goes.
And the funds tied to that also.
Correct. So, I don't know if you, I have a question about it. I'd
So
like
this
to
is a
know.
question that I've been struggling with, because if we have funding, grant funding tied to preschool teachers, and then I have to eliminate that to kind of make up in kindergarten, is that even possible? So the best thing that I can tell you right now is from the most recent email that I've received, they still have not decided on the full-day kindergarten grant. And this grant which we have gotten every year, just automatic, you apply for it and you get it, is now a competitive grant. So that's the one we just finished today. So you're talking $120,000 from the 701, the full-day kindergarten grant, that has been cut to $100,000, that went down to 96, then it went down to 68. So that's what we're receiving right now, 68, which in a couple weeks we may find may no longer be funded at all. So now there's another 68,000, which was 120,000 at the beginning, that was unbudgeted. And then all of our preschool grants I just totaled up was 92,000. So if we do not receive that competitive grant,
Deeper in the hole.
there's another 192,000. So what we have budgeted at Eastford Road for both of those grants is 92 for one and 94 for the other. So that's $186,000 just in staffing. If we don't get either of them, if we don't receive either of those grants.
Have you, this is a question, and I don't know if the principals did this, talk to staff to kind of brainstorm and think about this?
I've talked to staff, I've talked to school council, and this is what we've come up with.
And we brought the state in as well.
Yes.
Well,
Yes. She was the one that let us know that
It was competitive.
we were no longer receiving entitlement
Yeah.
grants.
questions?
I would just say disheartened must be an understatement.
You get more demands put on you by the state, by everybody else, and then you have to do more and more with less and less, and
Come to the point where you can't.
Where the children need it most, at the level where the children need it most. Not that any other grade level is less significant,
Well, you have to start
Start.
out.
but they need to start reading. They need to leave Eastford Road School reading.
we need literacy by grade. We absolutely need literacy by grade. That's the single biggest predictor of student success. Okay. Anything else?
Just a question, I know that we have to have this all voted by the 15th. Today's the 8th, so it's a week. I appreciate the cuts that have been proposed. But I think just based on the discussion here, I'm not ready to say rubber stamp this and say okay, because I just feel we need to look harder. And we need to just, in my mind, I can tell you areas that, in my own humble opinion, are fluff, that perhaps if we looked a little closer at some of those fluffy spots, we could do a better job at providing necessary teachers at those elevations, specifically at Eastford Road. I mean, that's despicable, it's disgusting, and the fact that, you know, you're sitting with, not we at this table, but the overall town, if you will, we're all part of it, we're sending the message that we do not value education. And I mean, what a message is that? It's disgusting. And for any of us to hold our head high, we can't, because it's a disgrace. So my recommendation is, I don't know how many more meetings we can have, but this just isn't good enough, and I can't support it because our kids deserve more, and I know times are tough, and I know constraints are difficult, but I think we need to look a little harder and provide more.
If I had my way, which I seldom do, I would fully fund Eastford Road School, and then do as much as we could. I realize you're the person, and you understand all of this more. I'm just saying from. But then you know what would happen? The spin would be that you're doing that to punish the Southbridge Middle High School. That's how this town works. So I don't know I know the right thing to do, and I know that motives will be ascribed to it that are not true. So I understand the position you're in. I respect what you're going to do. Whatever you need to do, I know you'll do it in the way that you see fair. But let's understand the politics.
Mrs. Donovan, not to put you on the spot here, but, I mean, this could be a place to have that discussion about what you think is an area where things can be cut. It's appropriate to have that discussion, I mean, you're to move things around.
I think we need to look at the athletic department at the Southbridge High School, specifically.
Have some fun.
I know that we had done a lot of work, or not, well, I was on the negotiation committee, but we had done a lot of work at, Mrs. Quinney can account for it, looking at trying to find equity with stipends and just overall budget amounts for equipment, how that budget was being used, how money was being taken from. It appeared from my eyes, this is some excess money that we could probably reallocate. And we tried to do that a lot with, when we did the stipends, to try to bring in some curriculum stipends, because all the stipends that ever existed were for athletics. And we had this discussion many times of what's more important. And obviously, you want the well-rounded student that has both, that has the academic piece as well as the athletic piece. Athletics are still very, very important, and I don't want to discount that piece whatsoever. However, I do think that there are some areas perhaps that would be a good place to start. There's even, I know that there's some new athletic sports that were introduced. At the time, they weren't even voted on, they just magically appeared, and we had all these coaches and all these assistant coaches and all these assistants to the assistant coaches, with everybody getting stipends up the wazoo. That was ridiculous, so we tried to rectify that, and I think we did when we came up with our new contract. I do see on this list that was provided about the number of students that participated in this year, I don't see volleyball, oh there it is, JV volleyball 19. So again, I don't want to wipe everything out. I know that, we have people that work hard, we have students that work hard. If we look at our records of how our athletic teams are doing overall, not really stellar for the amount of money that we're putting into them. And I think our money could be more wisely spent on teachers in the classroom, especially at a level that they're most deserving to be.
Yep.
I think at Eastford Road School, we have 13 teachers, is that right? 9 kindergarten, 4 preschool.
Yeah, and one pass and one.
Development.
I think they're taking a gigantic hit at
As
that
we do
level.
every single year,
And I
every
think,
single year.
so we're gonna say they have 15, so 2 of 15 positions are being cut at that building. That's a lot for, we've always said that these kids coming in, they need consistency, they need classroom structure, they need to be reading by the time they leave Eastford Road School. And I think looking at some of the class sizes, pretty consistently this was just quick, this is the first time I've seen it. Most classes at the elementary school are in the high 20s. And then I know you said not to look at these AP classes and whatnot, and I'm assuming the things that have zeros means that there's actually no class and that teacher is teaching something else during that time and not teaching any students. Some of those numbers are concerning. 4, 8, 2. I think that's a place where we need to look at consolidating classrooms and figuring out how to make the people that we have meeting the needs of the kids in a more efficient manner. I think we're paying whatever we're paying for VHS for all 150 seats, is that, I don't remember, whatever, however many seats we're paying for it, $135, I had all those numbers before, but utilizing those seats to our best advantage. If it's for these smaller classes to consolidate to then have some of these teachers that are 11, 13, 4, those are small classes. And compared to what it seems like what the classroom sizes are in all of the other buildings are extraordinarily small. So I would request that whoever schedules and does that, the scheduling team, look at how those particular extraordinarily small classes this year, what they're predicted to be next year, consolidating them in some way, shape, or form that maybe it's VHS, maybe it's whatever, and some of the electives, the electives on VHS are phenomenal. So are there electives that we can make smaller? We have some language classes that have room for 25 students and there's only 2. That's concerning. So I think there's more potential with a larger staff if we have 95 non-PTS teachers that we can look at non-renewing rather than going through increasing class sizes. So we're going to have Eastford Road kids that don't know how to sit still for 2 seconds. It's like herding cats down there. We're going to have class sizes of 6. If we go over 15, we lose our NIAC accreditation, and chances are we're going to go over. Or you're going to be saying, well, sorry, Johnny, it was nice having you in preschool, but you don't have an IEP, so you need to go somewhere else. It's crazy to me. So if we have 15 at the, at Eastford Road School, I think a minimum of 15 at the middle and high school level would not be asking for a whole lot. So I would request that that is looked at more carefully, in that making the hit to Eastford Road significantly less. You had also said that you were looking at intervening in each collective bargaining unit. I don't see that that is reflected in the cuts to meet the town budget.
We did not do that yet. It is certainly something that we can consider. We did not move forward in that direction, but it is something that we can.
I think that if we're gonna, we've got what we've got and we've got to make it work. I think spreading it out so that particular pockets are hit less hard and spreading the hurt across a larger portion of the, that we have available, I think that that's, I mean, nobody wants anybody to be fired except apparently people that don't want to pay $153 extra in their taxes. Whatever. I think that would have addressed a lot of our issues that we have here, and I think something else that people don't understand is that Chapter 70, they allocate us money, and they allocated us increase in that amount. We are a level 4 district with struggling students. You can look anywhere and see our MCAS results, our ANET scores, our behavioral referrals, the need for wraparound services, our ELL population, our SPED population. We are a hurting district, and the state thought we needed at least a 2.17% increase. And that translates to the town to less than a 1% increase. The town wants us to get out of level 4 with less money. Districts that get out of level 4, the average over net school spending is 17 to 19%. They give us a penny over minimum wage, and we are supposed to be so happy and make miracles happen with that. And we are vilified left, right, and center for our mismanagement of the no money they give us. It's sad, and the kids are suffering, and to figure the average household in Southbridge that could have generated $879,000 for this town, which could have gone into meeting the needs of the students in this district, would have been approximately $153 for the year. And to see a town council who has no confidence in us decide that that wasn't even an option is, as Mrs. Donovan said, I don't think we can hold our head high, and I think everybody should be hanging their heads low and looking at the little children of the school district and their futures, and recognizing the fact that they are saying to all of those children, you do not matter, your education doesn't matter, and I wouldn't pay $153 to give you anything that you needed. Thank you.
Just because some things tend to go by quickly, Donovan mentioned athletics. Do we have just a figure of what's about what are we spending for athletics in this 2016 budget? Just
I had that at a prior meeting. I don't have it broken out today. Some of it sits in central office. It is the 3510 function, and we're looking at 74,089 sitting in central, and some of it sitting in the middle high school.
when I see this high school athletics function 3510, I'm seeing $156,850.
Yeah, plus 74. So you're really talking.
It's higher than that.
Yes, so you're really talking 230,000. My math's eluding me. About $230,000. So if you take what's at the high school, what's at central office, and there actually should be. That was combined with high school, I'm sorry. So that 156 plus 74 makes about $230,000 on athletics.
on athletics in the
Correct.
2016 budget. I think people just need to hear that figure.
Is it? Am I missing something?
Transportation.
No, the 21,000 I moved to high school. I just grouped it all together. We ended up grouping everything together, so that should be correct.
230,000.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Transportation. We currently have a bus run that goes, under state law. We are required to provide transportation for students in our borders that choose to attend private school.
Correct.
And so we have a singular bus run for that purpose. And it's what is it, $60,000? Is there a way to eliminate that bus run, have those students be consolidated with, you still provide transportation, of course, but consolidate a bus run, so to free up $60,000 for Eastford Road School?
It's my understanding that that was considered, and the savings was not, it was not viable.
It's the number of students that need the busing.
Because you'd still need
You'd
another
still
bus.
need an additional bus.
I got you, okay.
Because our buses are pretty full as they are.
Many school districts also charge for busing in sports. I don't think that's an option for us here for many reasons, but a lot of school districts are doing that, so we're not able to do that. It's tricky because, you know, no matter what you do, you're affecting kids at every single level in the district, no matter what you do. You know, and it's like, yeah.
And I would like to speak a little bit about the high school and scheduling. I think it's difficult to cut singleton courses here and there because you do want to offer electives to students, electives in each department. And so while a teacher may teach 3 or 4 core, their one additional course may be an elective. So while you may cut one course, it doesn't allow you to really be able to cut a full teacher as a result of that. That's not to say that we won't go back and again look at the schedule and see if that's possible. I think what you see in not filling the PE retirement is exactly that. To go back to the high school, middle school, and reallocate courses without that additional full position being available. It's not as easy at the other departments to do that. So not that we're not going to try and go back and do that, but it's not as simple.
May I just ask one more question? I'm sorry, Erin. So currently there's a vacant assistant principal position at Southbridge Middle High School. Could that money be reallocated? It's an $81,000 salary. Could that, I know the middle school also still needs help with their evaluations and whatnot. I'm just saying, while that position is currently vacant, rather than removing somebody or affecting somebody in that regard, can we reallocate $81,600 to Eastford Road School?
Hypothetically, I think the discussion would center around the high discipline rates at the Southbridge Middle High School. I think dealing with increasing discipline, trying to get administrative support, as you mentioned, to the evaluation system, but certainly something to consider.
Mrs. Quinney, I'm just sorry, then I'll.
Okay.
Mrs. Quinney.
I just wanted to touch on the health PE teacher. It seems like we've added a gazillion and we're taking away one and we should be really happy. I don't, like, we had a 0.5 and that was gonna make everything wonderful. We needed a 0.5 history and that was gonna make everything wonderful. Well, then it turned into a full-time and a full-time, which I don't know how that worked in the budget. I think pretty miraculous we're not over budget this stage of the game. And now somebody's retiring, so before we had a 0.5 was gonna solve everything, and now we've added 2 that have transitioned up there, so we're taking for a .5 position, we're adding 1.5, and that doesn't seem to make sense to me. I think, I don't know. I'm just so frustrated. Because we were presented with a particular thing, we were asked to vote on it, we were told all the reasons that we needed it and how it was gonna meet those needs exactly. We said yes, and then somehow that turned into 2 full-time teachers, and then another teacher got moved from another building to fill another position up there, and then, so we've added 2.5 or whatever, I don't know how many now, and that supposedly was going to be able to be managed with a .5, and now we're taking 1 away, and it doesn't seem to make sense to me, I think.
I just think it's important to point out, again, back to athletics, I know it's not popular, but we don't have to have interscholastic athletics, and that covers that takes a great deal of money, travel, coaching, there's a lot of things involved in that, and we still can be offering sports at the intramural level. So I think that needs to be considered. I know that's a tough one for people, but I really think that needs to be considered.
And to that point, I think an issue that I have seen is equipment gets given to students. They take ownership of that in multiple ways, despite it being lent to them by the school district. And then we're continuing to have to purchase the same equipment that we've already purchased because that never gets returned. Are we looking at how we can minimize that and how students will be held responsible for equipment that is lent to them or uniforms that are lent to them versus that they take ownership of them and never return them so that we then have to buy them again?
Remember, part of the responsibility would be for the person who issues the uniforms to get them back.
Yes. Well, I don't know how that happens, but I do know that that is a past practice that I think we need to rein in significantly. I think that's also true of,
I guess maybe the question is, is it time for an audit of the athletic department, the athletic budget, so that we can get a handle on exactly those types of issues. The idea that we lend out equipment and it doesn't come back, I think, is very similar to the unfortunate situation when we give textbooks and they don't come back. So I think that overall, our lack of oversight in how we're managing our resources is longstanding and something that we do have to address, very much so, and something that we would look to be doing next year, to reestablish those processes so that we are very well aware of what we have and what we're giving. I feel disheartened when I go into Coal Trade and I go into the basement and there is an abundance of equipment and supplies and boxes, and I will say I don't think that we have been good stewards. I do not think we have, and that we do need to do a better job. We need to clean it up, we need to clean it out, so that we are aware of what we have, and that we are holding families accountable if things are lost. But we have not done our due diligence. It is very disheartening, to use your words, to walk through and see what was left behind, and that we haven't followed up and done our due diligence. If it's surplus, going through the process of surplus. If it's usable, getting it back to the school and making it usable, and then putting the procedures in place so that we are accountable.
Madam Superintendent, is that something that just happened recently? In other words,
No.
it just appeared there?
No.
They've been
When
there
did we
for-
move out?
They've been there for years.
Correct.
Yes.
I know that Nathan got a barcode scanner machine that he's very excited about, and everything was gonna be marked, and then we were gonna know who had what, and has that ever come to fruition? And can we do that with equipment? Some
Not
sort of
technology.
database? That was gonna happen with textbooks and
I
whatnot.
do with technology, but I don't think we got the textbooks yet or anything like that.
Growing more resources, cutting.
So I'm just looking at non-instructional cost centers to try and figure this out. So I'm just going through and I'm looking, so then I'm looking at the custodial budget for Middle High School, which is over $300,000. It is a big building, I recognize that, a lot of external space, a lot of interior space. But I think I recall last year, I know the Worcester Public Schools tried something new, and it was over the summer what they did. Now, what they decided to do over the summer to cover for vacations and whatnot is they would literally, instead of having a skeletal crew at one building, a skeletal crew at another, they opted to bring the entire crew into one building, clean that building up, move to the next building, clean that building up. Now, this is for summer. I know they support us all year round in this endeavor, but I'm just wondering if there wouldn't be something similar. Like, are there some tasks that need to be done every single day? Sure. Are there other tasks that could be done? I don't know enough about those positions and what they do. But I'm just saying, if we're looking at non-instructional, this is yet another area where there potentially could be some sort of cost savings. But every building, I think, has two, like does Eastwood Road have two custodians? And Charlton Street, does Charlton Street have two? And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 assigned to the middle high school. Now, there could be a very good reason for that. Could be because one of them is entirely assigned to the outdoor space, and then they have one for the morning and one for the afternoon. But I don't know that looking at this. But that's an area where, is a possible, you hate to say it, you're talking about people's lives and you're talking about the kids and you're trying to balance all of that. Question, just looking.
Which is one of the reasons that, we have been trying to look at retirement, resignation, and attrition. Originally, we were looking at no retirement, which would have been a significant impact to the cuts that you're seeing. As time has unfolded, we have had some retirements and some resignations. So with that, we have a little bit more flexibility. At this point, I have not heard of any resignation, retirement, attrition coming out of any other units. So that doesn't mean that we won't look at other units, but it will mean reduction in force. It would mean pink slip, and it would mean unemployment.
So just to make a point, I guess. When we did the restructuring, or didn't do it, rather, one of the main arguments was, we don't know what the unemployment is. Now, maybe I'm missing something here, but when you give such a small amount to the schools, doesn't that cause unemployment too?
Yes.
I mean, so, so they're going to say, those unemployment costs, we're not going to give you the money to pay people, and so you'll have to lay them off, but boy, those unemployment costs. What an incredible thing. What an incredible thing that people rationalize. Thank you.
And the unemployment costs, where you get to absorb them, but we don't get to decide on the election. I have said this 3 years running now. Employers can be charged a per capita cost, or they can be charged an experience rating cost. Whatever Southbridge is elected to do, and it's not per capita, it's the experience rating cost. But those costs would be fixed and known if they took to a per capita cost. But it's my understanding that we can't separate the school department from the town, so everybody has to face the same number. I get that. But I'm just saying that would be yet another way to manage a budget if you knew and had a fixed cost. And then what happens is employers self-fund unemployment. Employment is not government funded, it's by the employers. And so the federal government occasionally steps in and extends unemployment and covers for a period of time. But if the pool grows, say every employee, the district is charged a per capita expenditure for every employee. As that pool grows, then the portion comes down of cost for the dish. And I've asked people to look into that in the past, and I don't know that it has, but I know that the time to elect, just for town council members that are here, potential and otherwise, the time to make that election is by December 31st, and it's a 2-year election for the type of per capita or experience rating. So I would encourage somebody to really do a cost analysis. I believe Mr. Clark said he had done one and thought it would be over what was being paid at one point in time, but now it might be more cost efficient to change the election for how that's done. And that might help both the town side and the school side going forward. I don't know. But, Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you. There is quite a bit of overtime in the custodial budget, like budgeted overtime. Could we say that there's an overtime freeze?
Yes.
And then give that money to Eastford Road School? Say, figure out how to get in your
So-
8 hours? Because some of, if you look at, like say, this building, there are 2 custodians, and then the budgeted overtime is approximately $1,000 apiece. And then other, the next section down, there's 5 people, and then the budget for overtime is $23,623.
So what happens in a situation like that? That's certainly something to consider. Work schedules need to be altered so that the very basics of, and lack of coverage for custodians is worked on. Instead of doing an 8-hour shift, custodians can sometimes do a 4-hour and just do, trash cans and bathrooms in order to get, back up to full coverage. I think that the addition, using substitute coverage is helpful, and that may be an area that we need to look at so that we can reduce overtime costs, but it is an area that we can certainly consider.
There are some things like snow removal that really aren't as flexible.
I understand,
Yeah.
but, I mean, some of that snow removal could happen within a scheduled 8-hour workday.
Right.
And I'd also, if I may, Madam Chair, ask a question of town councilors. When you vote the budget, I didn't stay for the entire meeting. The raises, that's separated, is that correct? It's a separate line item that you all approve?
We just went by section.
Right, so some of the
Karen-
sections.
Karen would read off the section and didn't specify specific raises, for example, we just read, like, for the general government section, for example, she'd just
Right.
read off a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, we
Right,
didn't.
so
We
when
didn't
they
do
read out
line
that,
items.
then there was, one of the sections was like, I don't know, I want to say COLA, whatever, 2% fire department or something along those lines. So
That
that
would-
was separated out from the general government.
Something like that would have been buried in the budget. It wasn't, we didn't vote on it as a line item.
No.
That wasn't sectioned off. I,
No.
because I remember reading somewhere in the thing, like general government, all those things, and she went through everything, and then like the school was separated out, and then there was, I left at the break, and then after the break, there was some like rate increases or something along those
Actually, there
lines.
was something like that in the past.
I can't recall.
So
I don't recall it either.
So when I read it, my assumption was, that's why I'm asking, is that separated out of the budget, say for the fire department or the police department.
You're right, there was a line item specifically for a 2%, was it 2 or 2.5%? I think it was 2. I think it was 2%.
It was 2, or I think one was 2 and the other might have been 2.5. I don't,
I think it was a kind of across the board 2% for,
town hall, and
That was-
another the DPW, and then 2.5 for fire and
well,
police.
those are, the fire and police are contractual.
Well,
That's
all
something that's
races are.
built in.
So this is.
Well, true. I mean, yeah, but a lot of the town hall people aren't, they're not unionized.
Yeah, there's no union in the town hall.
So I just wanted to say, as a point of information for the public, our budget includes all of our collective bargaining agreement
Right,
Yeah.
obligations.
right.
And it's not separated out. So when you look at the way that the town budget was presented, I felt that it looked like everything was nice and even, and then we had these extra little things down the bottom that were something different. But in fact, the reality is those units got a 2.5% increase, or not a unit, a group got a 2% increase. That all of that is in ours. If we separated out our budget and took all the contractual obligations for our collective bargaining agreements out of it, our budget would look very different. But because it's all combined, and it would be huge, that difference. And I don't know moving forward how that could be laid out, because I think people then look, oh my gosh, the school budget is so much higher, their costs are so much higher, but the reality is the majority of our costs, as you've heard tonight, are personnel.
Absolutely.
All of, the majority of those personnel are collective, all of them, are, with the exception of that sheet of paper that are year-to-year individual whatevers, are collective bargaining agreements. So if we were able to separate it out, our budget and the increase in our budget versus what we're contractually obligated to would look very, very different. And I think the public perception is, well, these groups, fire, town hall, whatever, police department, they've kind of kept everything kind of just about the same, but then separated out is those increases. But if you added that in, it would look very different if they were combined in the budget discussion. So I want people to be aware that this contains all of that. It's not a separate item in our budget. All of those contracts, and I will say that nobody got 2.5 this year. I don't think anybody got 2 this year, but I think that makes a big impact. We've negotiated contracts that are significant, contractual increases that are significantly less, being mindful of where we are budgetarily and not wanting to have to give an increase and then have to lay people off or fire people, to try to keep things as consistent as we can across the board and keep people who are working hard employed.
So you're saying if we were less transparent, we'd be better off? Just,
I don't know.
it would match the
That's
town.
what I was saying. That it's reported very differently and it's presented differently, town versus, town entities versus the school entities, how those information is presented is different, and I don't think that it's in a positive way for the schools.
So, let me ask this discussion. Because the majority of the calls and emails that I received over the last few days, and I know they also copied other people, had to do with Eastford Road School. That doesn't again mean that West Street isn't important or whatever. But for Eastford Road School, what is the dollar amount that would be needed to provide for what you want?
I'd be happy with just a level fund at Eastford Road, just so I could have the same as what I have now.
No, that's-
Still with no
That's not a-
sped
Don't have a
teacher?
sped
The needs
I still don't
base,
have a
whatever
sped
that
teacher,
needs
I still
base.
don't have an ELL teacher. Just to maintain class size, it would be wonderful if I could just keep the positions I have now.
That's not enough needs-based budget that we put together.
But what is that?
Whatever
Does
that,
we have the dollar amount?
I think I added the two. I added the ERS pre-K and the elementary music teacher, and that came to $87,939. So those two were specific to Eastford Road, but the salary for a sped teacher, I would believe would have to be added for that as well.
I can compare our service level budget to Eastford Road's town budget. Give me a moment. This is presuming grants stay the same, which is kind of
That's the most concerning part, is the
yeah,
grants.
that's really the most
Just
concerning
even outside of this
of all of us.
conversation.
So I think we are talking 110,000 111,000 off of our level service to our reduced budget, 111. So we went from 2,7,895 to 1,897,810. So it actually a little, yeah,
That's just Eastern Grove.
yeah, 100, about 110,000. I'm sorry.
We gotta figure this out. We're-
Well,
Are,
it's
are we to
direct.
direct the superintendent what to do? Or have we just indicated ways in which we'd like to see it go? We understand that, but she still has to make all these decisions.
Right.
I think when we get into line items, and we have been, I understand that, but we can't, we could do that all night.
Right.
We know that Eastern Grove School is desperately in need. But we also know that there are a lot of other dynamics to consider. So I think, I'm not sure that we need to continue tonight, really. I think we've done it.
I have this question relative to the Chapter 70 funds. Is there any way for a school department to contest the fact that they didn't receive the dollar amount that was allotted to them? Do we have any recourse on that, or do we just have to say,
As long as
okay,
the district meets that school spending.
that's the bottom line?
As long as they're exactly there. The reality is, I think, if I can Chair, you're preaching to the choir if you say that the Chapter 70 model is broken. However, the Chapter 70 model takes into account many of the variables that are drivers to the cost of running a school. Poverty, ELL, and SPED. And I'll challenge you to find anyone who knows anything about education who would disagree, educational funding. So Chapter 70 takes those three items into account. So when they increase Chapter 70 funding, they're making a very clear statement. So while we, through our budget, have stated, there's a need, there's a real need, the Chapter 70 formula has backed it up. I mean, you can cast aspersions at us, you can cast aspersions at the way Chapter 70 is allocated, yes, but the formula contains those variables that are the key drivers to educational funding.
And can I just say something else too on that? And the reason the governor has proposed to cut those grants out of his budget is because he has increased the Chapter 70 funds. So he's assuming that by taking them out of his budget, by putting more into the town budget, that is where the source of funding will be coming from. And indeed, it's not.
That makes a lot of sense unless you have a town that wants to keep it.
Well,
Right.
then the other factor that comes into this in the language that you hear is about school choice. If we weren't spending so much on school choice, the schools would get more money. What I actually learned at the foundation budget hearings was very interesting about school choice. Southbridge actually gets more Chapter 70 funding because of our school choice. Southbridge is given a per capita figure on every child within the boundaries of the town, whether or not they attend the public school system. So it's disingenuous, in a sense, for the town to say, well, we're paying this. No, you're not. Chapter 70 flows it in, and it goes out through the minimum net school spending. So the actual taxpayers of Southbridge are not paying a dime for school choice. And that's the reality. It's unfortunate. I think I've gone on the record before. School choice, I think, is socioeconomic segregation. It is a flawed social policy. That is not to say that parents don't have the right to exercise the choice that's best for them and their families. I understand that. But as a as a public policy, it is severely flawed. And it is creating deeper and deeper socioeconomic segregation in our school districts and in others similarly situated. And you can see that throughout the Commonwealth. Just getting into a deeper and deeper hole. But for people to say, well, if we weren't spending this money on school choice, we'd have $2 million to give to the kids in Southbridge. Not true. If we weren't spending $2 million, our Chapter 70 funds would be shrinking as well. That's the reality. And I didn't even fully understand that until I went to those foundation budget hearings and the Director of Revenue for the state and the Director of Finance for the Department of Ed clearly laid that out. So I think it's important for people to know.
And to that point, I would add that when we get our Chapter 70 funding, what the town takes out is one of the many things that the town takes out is what it costs for school choice. So that automatically comes out. So what actually gets to the school, it's already been paid for before it comes to us. So that will probably be a bit of a misnomer. I wanted to just say thank you to the people that, the parents that wrote and advocated for their kids and the kids in this district. I think the sad thing is the town has appropriated a certain amount of money. And I would implore you, all parents, next year, if the town votes to not levy taxes, that you write to the town council at that time. And when the town council is voting on the budget, that you write to the town council at that time, as that would be the avenue to impact what is appropriated to the schools. I understand the frustration and the needs that we have. I think everyone in this room does. I think the challenge is we've been appropriated what we've been appropriated, and it doesn't meet the needs. It doesn't meet currently what we have. It doesn't meet any of those things. So regardless of the needs and the impact that dollars would have for our kids in supporting what is currently going on and potentially adding to that, we don't have it. So cuts have to be made, and where that's coming, I mean, I think you've heard tonight that we're trying in every avenue to not impact what's going on in classrooms, and especially to our youngest students, and looking at places that potentially could be cut or lessened, or resources used more efficiently in order to meet the needs of all the students. But the reality is we have a number that we are not allowed to go over, and that's painful for, I think, all of us, and I think every student in this district. But thank you for advocating, and I would implore you and everyone you know and speak to write frequently and often anytime the town takes a vote to not levy taxes, and prior to voting on a budget that reflects cuts to the schools.
And Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out the two town councils who are here who have been most supportive of our school budget, Gus Steves and Amelia Pelican. No other councils are here, but I do appreciate your coming.
So, do you, Christine, feel like you have a sense of where we're coming from? Do you need additional guidance from us? Is
So
there-
what I'm hearing you say, I think, is that to present, I think what we have tonight, less the reductions to the Eastford Road, and to come up with different line items in the budget to pull about, what I heard was about 110,000, just shift that out of impact to the Eastford Road School and find a different place in the budget to get that. So I guess, is it the will of this group that I present the same type of chart? Or is it that there needs to be a presentation for tomorrow? Or is it a discussion?
I mean, I think a chart, like
Just like that.
actual sheet, and we
Okay.
can look at that and
Alright.
figure that out. And we may, in fact, may need to meet again next Monday if we're not able to settle this tomorrow. We may need to meet on the 15th to have that officially worked out. But
We can't meet
we
next
have to
Monday.
vote.
On that Monday,
What?
the 15th, that's the 15th, isn't it?
So you said
Actually,
you
the
can't-
15th, we can't meet the 15th. If we have a decision made by the 15th, we have to send notices by the 15th.
Just have to send notices, well, that's true, I'm sorry, yeah. So we would have to make a decision by the,
It's also my daughter's first swim meet, so.
But they also voted on capital budget was not a discussion for general government on Wednesday, so So won't that affect our budget?
No.
No?
It won't impact this.
We won't take
It will
anything out, I know
impact
what you mean.
capital items, yeah.
Right, okay.
So we would have to meet on Thursday or Friday.
If we
If we can't do this tomorrow, and perhaps we can come to that resolution tomorrow.
It would be my goal to come to a resolution tomorrow, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of notifying meeting with staff, getting notifications out to staff, reasonable assurance out to staff. We're bumping right up against the 15th, and I hope that we can come to a decision tomorrow.
So, Madam Chair, if there's no other business, and since the superintendent has a lot of work ahead of her, I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And those present? Thank you.